Good afternoon and welcome. This is News Central now on News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. First, our top stories. Ex-CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele pleads not guilty to fresh Naira notes printing charge. Rwanda President Kagame critique Ntaganda barred from July presidential ballot. South Africa's President Ramaphosa to sign National Health Insurance Bill into law. Details in a moment. News Central now at this hour begins in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on Wednesday arraigned a former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, for approving the printing of 684.5 million naira notes to the rate of 18.96 billion naira. Emefiele was arraigned before Justice MaryAnn Anenih of the Federal Capital Territory High Court on 4 counts. He pleaded not guilty to the 4 counts when it was read to him. Moving his application for bail, his counsel, Mahmud Magaji, asked that the courts to grant him bail on self-recognition and on the same grounds and conditions of bail already granted him by a sister court led by Justice Hamza Muazu. Justice Anenih subsequently granted him bail in the sum of 300 million naira with 2 sureties and like sum, who must be residents of Nigeria and owners of properties in Maitama district. Away from that now, we understand that after several weeks of intermission, the tripartite committee set up by the Nigerian government will finally meet on Wednesday. Labor unions are also standing their ground on their proposal of 615,000 naira minimum wage while insisting on May 31st, 2024 deadline. The development comes after the failure of the government to present a nationally acceptable minimum wage to Nigerians following the expiration of the old minimum wage on April 18, 2024. President Bola Tinubu, through Vice President Kashim Shettima on January 30, 2024, inaugurated the 37-member tripartite committee to come up with a new minimum wage. And still on impending industrial action, aviation unions have instructed staff of Nigeria Meteorological Agency to embark strike action on Monday, May 20, 2024. The unions include the National Union of Air Transport Employee Association of Nigeria, the Association of Nigerian Aviation Professionals, and the Amalgamated Union of Public Corporations and Technical and Recreational Employees. The strike stems from management's failure to address 45 months of minimum wage arrears and consequential adjustments for staff members. The unions, represented by the 3 general secretaries, Ucheme Abba, Abdulrazak Seidu, and Wahid Sikiru, wrote a letter addressed to NIMET's Director General, Professor Charles Anoske. They also expressed their dismay that the agency staff had been waiting the palliative payments sanctioned by the federal government since October 2023. Now, let's also tell you that the Academic Staff Union of Universities has threatened another nationwide strike to protest absence of governing councils in all federal universities, among other issues the federal government is yet to address. As the president, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, issued the threat at an ongoing press conference at the union's National Secretariat in Abuja. The body, which said the federal government dissolved governing councils of the universities in May last year, has asked Nigerians to hold the government responsible for any decision it takes to protest, or rather, yes, to protest the action of the government. And in more news, staying with education matters, a multiple indicator cluster survey released on Tuesday shows only 7% of youngsters in the 15 to 24 age group in Nigeria have acquired ICT skills. The report launched by UNICEF found that 73% of 15 to 24-year-olds in Nigeria are literate, and their literacy was assessed on their ability to read a short, simple statement or on their school attendance. In Nigeria, 26% of children of primary school age are out of school. At the junior secondary school level, the percentage of out-of-school children drops to 25%, and at the senior secondary school level, it increases to 34% of children. The report found that 27% of children aged 7 to 14 have foundational reading skills and 25% have foundational numeracy skills. However, learning gaps were observed along socioeconomic lines, with a higher share of urban and wealthy children having foundational reading and numeracy skills. Now, earlier, Learning and Development Consultant and founder at Daron Foundation, Dr. Daron Kujore, spoke to us on this development.
Perspective, I think it's really just a matter of priorities. I think we have a big education problem as a whole, which is why those numbers are where they are. But we've been talking education and advocating education and at least a basic education for all children for a while. And so those numbers are a little higher. Obviously, we still have issues there if 30% of our children are still unable to read and write, don't have those basic literacy skills. Those somewhat that 30% is somewhat caused by some of the issues we have around access to schools, poverty, out of school children. So those conversations have been had for a while. I think the digital problem or the technology problem is a little different because technology is somewhat new. We have not prioritized technology in our schools. Actually, we've been pushing, my organization has been pushing for a while to see if we can get some legislation around requiring technology education for all schools across the country because of how low our numbers are. I think in 2024, and anyone can see how it is a little disappointing that only 7% of our children between 15 and 24 have those basic skills. And we're not asking them to be coders. We're not asking them to be, technology experts in any way. All we're talking about here is the basics of understanding what is a computer, how to turn it on, how to turn it off, how to use it effectively, and just understanding even the possibilities that await through the information technology. And it's a poverty problem. It's a prioritization problem from a government perspective. And our hope is that some of these numbers will bring more attention to it. It's sad that we are talking AI in many cases, where a majority of our children don't even know what a computer is or have never seen or touched one.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's federal government has tasked education regulatory agencies in the country to ensure that unregistered persons are not allowed to practice as teachers around the country. Nigeria's Minister of State for Education made this known at a stakeholders meeting in Abuja, which reviewed a proposed development project for the Kano Center of the National Mass Literacy Center. The Minister of State expressed worry, saying that the activities of unqualified teachers are contributing to the low standard of teaching in the country. Idang Joseph reports.
The teaching profession in Nigeria had its first regulatory body in 1993 and took off operations in the year 2000. This, over the years, allowed many unqualified persons to get available jobs as teachers. While educational experts have called for stricter regulation of teaching in the country, Nigeria's Minister of State for Education threw its weight behind this call, calling on the teaching regulatory body to ensure strict compliance with standards.
All those that are graduating to be teachers in at least National Certificate of Education and above must be inducted and registered as teachers. Those who are going to graduate as librarians must also be registered and inducted. Those who are going to be computer practitioners must also get themselves inducted and pay all the necessary dues so that quackery will be 18 of the past under the Federal Ministry of Education. We must guide teaching profession jealously.
Declaring open a stakeholders meeting on the proposed development of 41 hectares of land belonging to the Kano State Center for the National Mass Literacy Program through a public-private partnership arrangement, the minister expressed government's commitment to ensure transparency throughout the project.
We are going to be guided by a lot of things in going into public-private partnership. You all know that private-public partnership involves risk sharing. We will, as much as possible, together with the regulatory agencies, to reduce the risk to both the government and the private individual that is going to participate in that aspect.
Our gathering here today is a requirement under ICRC guidelines. I therefore implore our guests to fully participate to ensure that the outcome of this stakeholders' engagement rubs off positively on the PPP and upon the quality of delivery.
With government funding in recent years not being able to match the growth of the education sector, experts are calling on governments to seek alternate sources of funding to help address the challenges in the education sector. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Let's do a short break now. We have more news coming up on the other side. Welcome back. Now, Oxfam in Nigeria has called for improved citizens' participation in governance, saying this will strengthen social cohesion in communities. This was as Oxfam, in collaboration with several development partners in Adamawa State, revealed that their 11-month community peace enhancement project in the northeastern state has effectively mitigated the effects of insurgency in the region. News Central's Joshua Imarai brings us this report.
The project is aimed at enhancing the socio-economic participation of internally displaced persons, returnees, host communities and other vulnerable groups in the northern region of the country. The project, which is funded by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, is being implemented by a coalition of partners comprised of Oxfam in Nigeria, the Christian Rural and Urban Development Association in Nigeria, and the Center for Public Education and Mobilization for Development in Nigeria.
Just like the people of Michika have extracted from it to carry out some developmental project in their area, the local government will also do the same by mining from these important documents sections of it and carry out activities, put them in their annual budget and execute. The state government also will do same through its various MDAs, pick areas that concerns their MDAs and impute into their budgets. And by so doing, everyone will be touched by this policy.
The Deputy Country Director of Oxfam reviewed that the project has improved citizens' participation in governance and strengthened social cohesion through inclusive and participatory community development planning.
We support the government as well. You know, there is that old saying that what can you do for your country? You know, it's not always what your country can do for you. So for us, this is very laudable, and the documents that we've been able to produce, we'll submit that to the state governments to see how they can replicate that, and also see how we can engage at the federal level as well to replicate in other states.
I think we can launch into other local governments that also need, because if you look at the state over, actually all of the local governments deserve, require, and need what we are doing.
Process of integrating local partners like Sudan to be part of this process is to ensure sustainability, because we are on ground to work with these establishments to ensure that there is success, there is profitability. So for me, it's a great process which has started, and we have seen the process which has yielded great fruits. Engaging with the local communities, we don't tell them their problem, they identify their problem, and they face the problem through this process.
The Adamawa State government pledged to replicate the project in other local government areas of the state. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
To security matters now, the Nigeria Police Force has arrested several car-snatching syndicates specialized in dispossessing citizens of their vehicles. The FCT Police Commissioner says that some of the vehicles stolen in Abuja were traced to faraway Lagos State, where they are usually sold to unsuspecting customers. Amadin Uyi reports.
These are suspected criminals apprehended by the FCT Police Command of the Nigeria Police Force. The police says that their crimes range from car theft, burglary, and fraud. The FCT Police Commissioner adds that some of the suspects are specialized in stealing vehicles.
We have number one here, Anthony Chibuzo and Jonas Chukwe. That's the first and second one there. We pick them up in Lagos. When they rob car here, they will take it to Lagos. They will rob within, they will take to Lagos to go and sell.
He says that some of the vehicles were rebranded to be sold as fairly used ones.
The Toyota Camry there has the chassis number there now is a fake one. It has gone through 4 transformations of 4 chassis numbers.
Some of the suspects confessed their involvement in the alleged crimes.
My children is hungry. I go to my say, help me make I give my children. I don't know say the police hands. I don't know say na one chance. I can't live there since last year. They give me 5,000.
Bana kwashe ba sana'a na bane. Wannan ne abun da yasa aka kawo ni na. Wannan aka je gida shi kusa da gidanmu ga gidan shi ga gidana. Aka je aka buga shi aka san mai mashi. Sai ya ce cikin mutanen da suka buga shi suka san mai mashi ya ganni a shi. Ga gidan shi ga gidana. A shan inda abu ya faru. Ni ba ni nayi mai ba. Ya ce shi ni shi ya ganni ni nayi mai. Gashi nan.
One of their victims, who was present at the command, narrated his ordeal to newsmen.
A gidana tare da iyalina shine sai suka zo suka same ni misalin karfe 2 na dare. Suka zo da shi da yan uwan su uku suka sassara man adda da sanduna haka suka karban man babur.
The command commended residents for sharing useful information with the police, saying the gesture has been helpful in the discharge of their duties. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
And in news just reaching us, an explosion has rocked a mosque in Gabon village in the Gazewa local government area of Kano State on Wednesday, leaving 24 individuals with various injuries. The incident occurred around 5:20 during the early morning prayers. A spokesperson for Kano State Police Command, Abdullahi Kiyawa, said preliminary forensic analysis showed that the explosion was suspected to be caused by petrol. The injured, including 20 adult males and 4 male children, were transported to Murtala Mohammed Specialist Hospital for treatment. Kiyawa added that the scene was cordoned off and the victims were rushed to the hospital where they are currently receiving medical care. We also understand that the principal suspect, identified as 38-year-old Shafiu Abubakar, has been arrested. And in Delta State, we head over to Delta State, where the State House of Assembly has slammed a suspension order on the member representing Ughelli North 1 state constituency, Matthew Omonade, for alleged gross misconduct. The suspension order, which was officially pronounced by the Speaker, Emomotimi Guo, was preceded by a motion raised on the floor of the House by the Majority Leader Emeka Nwaobi, representing Anyocha North state constituency in the State House of Assembly. In the motion, which was supported by Chief Whip of the House, Perkins Umukoro Sapele, and unanimously adopted by the House, the suspected APC lawmaker was alleged to have willfully and falsely perverted the proceedings of the House of Wednesday on the 8th of May 2024. This, according to the Majority Leader, violates the standing order and rules of the House, hence the need for the suspension. Following the unanimous adoption of the motion, the Speaker, Emomotimi Guo, pronounced a suspension order on the lawmaker spanning 14 legislative days.
This Honorable House suspend the Honorable Member representing Ughelli from the service of the House for a period of 14 legislative days for gross misconduct. The Honorable Member representing Ughelli 1 state constituency hand over to the management of the House all government properties in its possession, and an ad hoc committee be constituted to investigate gross misconduct by the Honorable Member representing Ughelli 1 state constituency. Say aye. Aye. Those against the ayes.
And now to election matters. Nigeria's electoral body has appealed to civil society organizations in the country to help mobilize eligible voters for the Commission's continuous voters registration exercise ahead of the Edo and Ondo state governorship polls. The chairman of the Commission says that 397 wards, including the Commission's state headquarters in the 2 states, have been mobilized to carry out the exercise. Amadin Uyi reports.
It was part of the electoral body's engagement with stakeholders ahead of the Edo and Ondo governorship polls. However, this time with civil society organizations. The chairman of the commission informed those present that plans have already been concluded to commence the continuous voters registration exercise in both Edo and Ondo states, saying this will present registrants with the opportunity to transfer their polling units to new areas.
Those who are registered voters also have the opportunity to transfer their registration from other states of the Federation to Edo and Ondo states, or from one location to another within the states.
He also adds that those who are interested in replacing their lost or damaged voters' cards will have the opportunity to do so.
Lost or damaged voters' cards will be replaced during the exercise. The CVR will take place simultaneously in the two states from Monday, 27th May 2024 to Wednesday, 5th June 2024, from 9 in the morning to 3 p.m. daily, including the weekend.
He concludes by urging members of civil society organizations present to help mobilize eligible voters for their registration exercise.
The Commission therefore appeals to civil society organizations to join us in mobilizing prospective registrants for the exercise, particularly on the need to register early and not wait until the deadline approaches, when the registration centers will be inundated by 11th hour registrants.
They seem to partially depend on us for collaboration and cooperation. We promise that we will fulfill all the demands you have made of us, and that this relationship should be strengthened and continue growing.
The chairman warned that there will be no option for online registration. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Now to speak on this with us and the measures in achieving credible polls in the forthcoming Ondo and Edo governorship polls, we are joined by public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure.
Good. Now, so Jide, what measures should the Independent National Electoral Commission take to ensure the continuous voters registration process is transparent, accessible, and also secure? And how can these measures contribute to enhancing the credibility of the elections?
Okay, so it's very important because I was at that forum that you just showed footage of yesterday. I was one of those who were invited, and incidentally, I also wrote about it in my column in the Punch of today. We need to understand the context that election is a methodical exercise. It's a procedural exercise. Election rigging does not happen on the day of election. If you are not allowed to register to vote, even if you are 18 years and above, you are already rigged out as an electorate, as a voter. That means you are disenfranchised. And it is in order not to disenfranchise any voter that INEC has taken it upon itself. In the recent past, usually INEC would do the registration at the local government offices. But because of the constraints and the complaint that a lot of people find it difficult to go to that centralized area, INEC decided to devolve to the ward level. And it has given the number of wards in Ondo and in Edo where this will happen. In fact, the list of where the wards are located was also shared with us yesterday. So there is both soft and print copy of the list of all the wards where the registration will take place. And that will enhance the credibility of the election because, the last registration exercise possibly took place ahead of the November 11 elections in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo State. But this is another round of off-cycle governorship election, and it is the opportunity that has been given to potential voters in Edo and Ondo states who have attained the age of 18 but are yet to register to now register. And aside from that, those who have lost their voters card, those whose voters card are defaced or rumpled, or they have issues with content of what's on their voters card, have opportunity to have those corrections. You also have opportunity to move your voter registration from one state or one ward or one polling unit to another. So it's a golden opportunity for participatory election. And that is one of the essence of democracy. Democracy is not just anchoring on periodic election, but it also must be participatory. And that's why opportunities have once again been given to members of the public who are 18 years and above, who have never registered, to now come forward, register to vote. And that is the first level. After this is for them to now show up to collect their PVCs, that was their permanent voters card, and thereafter at the polls on November 21 in Ondo State, and on November 16 in Ondo State, and September 2023 or thereabouts in Edo State, they should also come out to cast their ballot.
Okay, Mr. Jide. So now we're talking about three different bodies here, or parties, if you may. We're talking about INEC, we're talking about the parties, we're talking about voters. So looking at the unique case of Edo State and Ondo State, the unique political climate, how can parties and also candidates contribute to the peaceful, inclusive electoral environment in these states? And what are the potential risks of not prioritizing fair and credible elections in these states?
As I said in my column today, credible election, inclusive election does not start and end with INEC, which is the electoral umpire. The actors, the actor here, the political gatekeepers, the political participants, the candidates must play by the rules. Incidentally, in Edo State, public campaign have started since April 24. It's going to be for 150 days. And we know what usually happens during the campaigns, where you talk of clashes among party supporters, psychological and physical violence. All of these are something we should not encourage ahead of this election coming up in Edo and Ondo State. And also the political party as a critical actor and stakeholder in the electoral process also holds the responsibility to mobilize their members to participate in the electoral process. In fact, they hold it a duty to also join INEC in conducting voter education. One, it is part of their responsibility to mobilize their members to go and register to vote, because they are going to be the primary beneficiary of this election when the time comes. So all their members, from ward through to local government, to states, to federal level, all their members who are in Edo and Ondo states, who may not have registered, have an opportunity and should be encouraged to go and register to vote. They should also encourage them to go and collect their PVCs. And then during the election, they should encourage their members who have collected their PVCs to come out. What we have seen over the years is poor turnout of voters at the polls. In fact, the last national elections, we recorded less than 30% voter turnout. It was so bad in Ethiopia federal constituency by-election that INEC conducted in February this year, that only about 8% of voters turned out to vote. It then means that the political parties and candidates did not do their own work very well. You cannot be depending on INEC and NOA, that's National Orientation Agencies, to help you mobilize your members. Primarily, you know that you need the votes of these people to be able to coast home to victory. And they should also spend significant resources to mobilize people to register, mobilize them to go and collect their PVC, mobilize them to also vote at elections. Join INEC in conducting voter education, not only for their members, but even for members of the public. There's nothing in the rule books that says that APC, PDP, Labour Party, or any of the 19 registered parties cannot conduct town hall meetings to sensitize Nigerians about the forthcoming off-cycle governorship election. There's nothing that says they cannot come to News Central TV to also pay for political adverts to mobilize members of the public to come out en masse and participate in the forthcoming election. So it's not something that should just be left to INEC, believing that INEC is the one that has the omnipotent and omniscient responsibility to conduct credible elections. It's a joint responsibility of all the actors and stakeholders in the electoral process. And that's why I'm also saying that civil society organization, I've done my own bit by writing about it in my column.
All right, Mr.
I'm discussing it on your platform. And if everyone does this in their own corner, I'm sure that the message will get to the potential voters to participate in the process.
Absolutely, Jide Ojo. Thank you very much, sir. Good to have you on this afternoon.
My pleasure. Keep safe, bro.
Thank you, Jide Ojo there, public affairs analyst. Now, coming up, United Nations warns of acute food insecurity in Sudan. We'll bring you the details after the break. Welcome back. News Central now continues in West Africa, where Burkina Faso's military rulers have announced they will hold national consultations at the end of this month to determine the next steps in the country's transition to civil rule. The country has been run by a military regime since soldiers deposed elected President Marc Christian Kabore in 2022. Junta leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré then seized power in another coup on September 30, 2022. He established a transitional government and legislative assembly for 21 months, a period set to expire on June 1st. According to a press release signed by Minister of Territorial Administration Emile Zerbo, read on national television on Tuesday night, national meetings have been called for May 25 and 26 in Ouagadougou. And we head on to East Africa now, where a prominent opposition politician and critic of Rwanda's President Paul Kagame has been barred by the court from vying in the July presidential elections. Bernard Matanganda had asked the court to lift his convictions so he could qualify to run in the elections. Rwandan law forbids individuals who have been convicted for more than 6 months from holding public office. On Tuesday, the High Court declined Ntanganda's request, citing his failure to pay legal fees in the previous case. He maintained he had paid the fees, adding that he was not surprised by the court's decision. Ntaganda was arrested before Rwanda's 2010 elections, in which he planned to run. He was freed in 2014 after serving time on charges including organizing unauthorized demonstrations and threatening state security. And now up north, Tunisian lawyers have protested and launched a nationwide strike over the arrest of a lawyer and political commentator in a weekend police raid. Laroussi Zaguire, head of the Bar Association's Tunis division, told journalists at the Tunis Court of First Instance that the strike was observed 100%. Several rallied outside the court against the arrest of Sonia Darmani, demanding her immediate release and chanting that the judiciary is working under orders. Following the heavy-handed arrest of lawyers at the Bar Association's headquarters, Bar President Hatem Mzio called for the rapid intervention from the President of the Republic, describing the arrests within the organization as serious criminal acts.
طالبين منك التدخل العاجل للتفريق بين مسألتين. نحن راهو ما احناش مع عقوبة جماعية. كل من ارتكب مخالفة أو خرق للقانون يتحمل مسؤوليته لأمام قضاء مستقل وأمام عدالة حقيقية، أمام حق دفاع، أمام محاكمة عادلة، بدون تعسف، بدون استعمال العنف، بدون استعمال القوة. ولو عوان الأمن ينفذوا في التعليمات بطريقة هكا وحشية وطريقة معناها بالشماتة، حتى بعد ما يقع السحل ولا اعتداء على زميلنا وجروا وكروا البارح في المستشفى. ها هما بنفسهم عرفوا رواحهم اللي هما اعتداوا عليه وهزوه مباشرة، يعني بعد ما محاولات عديدة باش عرفناه حتى وين. وراهو الافعال هذه كلها مجرمة وخطيرة وما نقبلوهاش اللي ارتكبوها علينا امس عوان الامن، معناها بطريقة كانوا احنا معناها ناس معناها ما همجوا ولا مرقين على القانون. ما احناش مرقين على القانون. تفضل. تقع اعلام العميد واحترام العميد ويقع استئذان رئيس فرع واعلامه واستدعاء.
And now we head to East Africa, where the United Nations says more than 7 million people in South Sudan are at risk of acute food insecurity in the coming months, including tens of thousands at a catastrophic level of farming. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, in a statement, an estimated 7.1 million people will likely be experiencing high levels of acute food insecurity between April and July 2024. It adds that within that group, there are 79,000 people at risk of catastrophic levels, which is equivalent to famine and mostly in locations affected by climate-related shocks, economic crises, and also conflict. A total of 9 million people are in need of humanitarian aid in South Sudan, which for the past year has been under compounding pressure from the war in neighboring Sudan. Still in the region, an unspecified number of villages are feared to be trapped following a landslide in Kenya's Kimende area of central Kiambu County. The incident happened on Tuesday night following heavy rains in the area, which is reported to have escarpments. According to image circulated online, many homes were covered in mudslides. The Kenyan Red Cross reports that after the incident, the area was roped off and designated as a danger zone. The relief organization also said a number of people are still missing, though no deaths have been officially reported. Rescue efforts are set to resume on Wednesday. In Central Africa, Gabon's deposed President Ali Bongo and two of his sons have gone on hunger strike to protest against their alleged subjection to acts of torture and barbarity. Bongo was ousted in a military coup in August last year, shortly after he won a disputed presidential poll. He was then confined to his house in the capital, Libreville, along with two of his sons, Jalil and Bilal. The ruling junta also placed his wife, Sylvia Bongo, and eldest son, Nuruddin, in prison, awaiting trial on corruption allegations. In a statement, their lawyers alleged that Nuruddin and Sylvia were beaten and strangled while in detention. They also alleged that Nuruddin was tortured, whipped, and electrocuted with a taser. Now, French Interior Minister says almost 500 members of the security forces have been deployed as part of a major operation to apprehend the gang who killed two guards in an attack on a prison van that freed a convict. The minister, while addressing newsmen, said authorities are under pressure to arrest those responsible for the heinous act. On Tuesday, more than 450 police officers and gendarmes were mobilized just for the search in the northern department of Ir, where the attack took place. The convict released was named as Mohamed Amra, 30, who had been convicted of robbery and also charged with abduction leading to death.
Le casier judiciaire porte mention de 13 condamnations. La première intervenue en octobre 2009, il était alors âgé de 15 ans. La plupart ont été prononcées par le tribunal judiciaire d'Évreux et la cour d'appel de Rouen. Elles portent sur des atteintes aux biens, notamment des vols avec effraction aggravée. Son casier judiciaire ne porte à ce jour mention d'aucune condamnation pour infraction à la législation sur les stupéfiants. Il est par ailleurs en détention provisoire dans le cadre de plusieurs dossiers, depuis le 26 janvier 2022 dans le cadre d'un dossier d'instruction du tribunal judiciaire de Rouen dans lequel il était mis en examen pour tentative d'extorsion avec arme, tentative d'assassinat et détention d'armes de catégorie B, fait qui aurait été commis à Saint-Étienne-du-Rouvray. Depuis le 26 septembre 2023, dans un dossier d'instruction du tribunal judiciaire de Marseille, dans lequel il est mis en examen pour complicité de meurtre avec préméditation en bande organisée, complicité d'enlèvement et séquestration d'otages pour obtenir l'exécution d'une condition, complicité de destruction par moyen dangereux en bande organisée, participation à une association de malfaiteurs en vue
Business now. Residents in Nigeria's coastal Bayelsa State reported hearing explosions and seeing smoke close to the oil firm Shell's Gabon Ubi oil and gas complex. The company is currently looking into the complaints of smoke that were made early on Tuesday. According to the Shell representative, there will not be an operational shutdown right away, but due to the event, the surrounding communities' residents reported hearing explosions where pipeline repair work had been done, and they reported the fire at around 600 hours GMT. With a daily processing capacity of about 2 billion standard cubic feet of gas, the Gabon facility, which started operations in 2010, is by far the most significant Nigerian LNG gas feedstock project. Now, the local data revealed that the country's unemployment rate increased in the first quarter and that local mining output decreased in March, which led to a weakening of the rand against other currencies on Tuesday at close of trading. Approximately 0.3% weaker than its previous finish, the rand was trading at 18.4175 against the dollar at 1,338 GMT. Against a worldwide currency basket, the dollar was up 0.13% last time. After rising for the second consecutive hour, South Africa's unemployment rate in the first 3 months of this year was 32.9%, which is closer to the record high of 35.3% set during the COVID-19 pandemic in late 2021. And crude oil prices rose on Wednesday on expectations for higher demand as the U.S. dollar weakened, and a report showed U.S. crude and gasoline inventories fell, while the release of inflation data may point to a more supportive economic outlook. Brent crude futures were up 51% or 0.6% at $82.89 a barrel at 6:30 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 55% or 0.7% to $78.57 a barrel. U.S. crude oil inventories fell 3.1 million barrels in the week ended May 10, according to market sources citing American Petroleum Institute figures on Tuesday. Gasoline inventories fell by 1.2 million barrels and distilled rose by 673,000 barrels. And sports now. Bafana coach Hugo Bruce has named the 36-member parliament preliminary squad for next month's 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Nigeria and Zimbabwe. The South African senior men's national team faced Nigeria's Super Eagles away from home in Uyo on Friday, 7th of June 2024, and then returned to host Zimbabwe at the Free State Stadium in Bloemfontein on Tuesday, 11th June 2024. Bafana will return to Bloemfontein for the first time since the 2010 FIFA World Cup. They last played in the city when they beat France 2-1 in the Global FIFA Tournament 14 years ago. The final 23-member squad will be announced in the next few days. In tennis, Quadri Aruna and Dina Mashref reclaimed the ITTF Africa Cup title after winning the 2024 edition at BK Arena in Kigali, Rwanda. Aruna, the top seed still fresh from his exploits at the WTT Saudi Smash, was again unstoppable with a commanding win in the final against Egypt's Mohamed El Baili. After 3 consecutive losses at the finals, the Nigerian got the crown back for the first time since 2017. The one-sided final saw Aruna effortlessly take down the Egyptian with a 4-love win to emerge as the new Africa Cup champions after losing the title to Egypt's Omar Assar in 2018. Like Aruna, Mashref was at her best after coming back from 2-love down to defeat her compatriot Mariam Al-Holbadi, 4-3 to become the new Africa Cup champions after losing the last 2 editions in the final. President of the Africa Table Tennis Federation and other dignitaries present commended the players for their professionalism and sportsmanship.
This is a very historical moment, I believe, for Rwanda. This is the first time to organize such a big event, either for the African continent or for international level. We are looking since a long time ago to come here to Rwanda, and finally last year Rwanda became with a very good file to host the African Cup, and it was the most efficient file for hosting this event. We, in the annual general meeting, gave the chance to Rwanda to host this event. Even it is one of the very big events in Africa, because we trust that they are working on the right track to make a very professional event like we see here this year.
Thank you. My name is John Birungi. I'm the president of the Rwanda Table Tennis Federation. We are very glad to be hosting this competition for the first time in our country. The significance of us hosting this is obviously it's first of all, it's a very big event. It's the biggest and most prestigious continental table tennis event. But also it's significant for us as a country, because this is part of our country's development strategy to boost the economy through sports tourism. It's part of the MICE strategy, and we as the Table Tennis Federation are following in the footsteps of the others who have moved ahead of us.
And that's all we can take this good afternoon. But before we go, let's take a look at our big stories from before. Ex-CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele pleads not guilty to fresh Naira notes printing charge. Rwanda President Kagame critic Ntaganda barred from July presidential ballot. And South Africa's President Ramaphosa to sign National Health Insurance Bill into law. Thank you very much for joining us, and do remember now, you can use, or rather you can send your eyewitness reports to the number on your screen currently. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Remember now, you can see us on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, and Able TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.